basically establish the existence of the first cause and do something clever like William Lane Craig, where you group a couple of arguments: cosmological, designer argument, teleological argument, and the let's say whatever one you choose, maybe the moral objective morality argument, and combine those together, and that points at a God that seems to be personal. But anyhow, the another version of the cosmological argument might be something like there the universe had a cause. Well, basically, the conclusion is going to end up that the universe had a cause, a first cause. And so usually the opponent in the cosmological argument is the infinite regress theory that the universe continues forever. And that's what I was getting to with Rudy Rucker and the infinities. I got into talking a little bit about the infinitesimals, but there's all sorts of infinities. Infinities about Aristotle's idea: if you throw an arrow all the way outside of space, will it continue forever? Will it stop at some glass sphere or some sort of sphere where the arrow will have to stop? Or infinities of I'm thinking a thought, and now I'm thinking a thought of that thought, and now I'm aware I'm thinking of that thought, of that thought, of that thought, and you can continue that cycle forever. What else? All sorts of infinities. Anyhow, that's the cosmological argument. This one really, really impacted my what I thought about religion, and how God played a role in that. And in some sense, I remember kind of shying away from religion when I saw God as insignificant to some of these problems, like a personal God. To the argument of the first cause, unless you could establish everything else, when you look at that naked argument by itself, it feels like you're trying to postulate the existence of just some sort of artificial intelligence or some sort of external intelligence that put everything into motion, and you don't even know if it is an intelligence. And so it seems difficult to parallel that with your religion. And because you're given that religion, there was this sort of slime that I felt in saying that my religion, the God of my religion, and recognizing at this time too there were other religions, that the God of my religion must somehow mysteriously link to the abstract concept of the thing that created, if granted the first cause argument is conclusive, that the first thing is the same thing as the God of my religion. And so, yeah, the cosmological argument still has a very big impact on me. I take no stance on a lot of these arguments because I still try to thoroughly investigate what others have said about them and other possible things that may contribute to, against, or for it. And teleological argument's another interesting one. I don't really feel like going into all of the atheistic arguments right now. I mean, there are so many, and they're very... I already feel this is super time-consuming. I don't want to bore anybody. I probably already am. If I bored you like from the started, but I guess mainly it's just been a roadmap that I've been pointing out so far about where I've been taken with my curiosity as I've been, I guess, developing in the educational arena. Philosophy's had a huge impact on me, and yeah, one that lately I've been reading Schopenhauer, and earlier I was talking about the order in which philosophy, the roots, the thematics of philosophy have affected me. Like epistemology seemed to be first, religion followed because it was directly linked with some of that stuff. Also about theories of what we can and can't know. I mean, skepticism, that was just fun. I didn't so much believe that so much as I found pleasure out of playing the skeptic a lot of the times. Like, oh, you really think he exists? I'm a sophist, or I'm an idealist. But anyhow, I didn't look too much at the idealism theories and things until actually really, really recently, when I was reading Schopenhauer, and he's talking about reality and the external, about a thing in itself, taking sort of Kantian and Platonic sort of ideas and merging them together, his two favorite philosophers. And so he's giving me an interesting thing to look at now that I've been really contemplating a lot, and that's the thing in itself. Now, in some sense, already, you're not even examining the arguments, but just kind of coming in with my own superstition about how I think the argument might fail, or might not be that gravitating, is the fact that why And again, this is given with no recourse to other arguments or scrutinizing it deeply. Why is should you postulate an extra existence about reality other than what it already is? And this is sort of the problem with religion as I find myself in my current stances in atheism. Why postulate extra existence? Occam's razor sort of principles, you know. Uh, okay, anyway, so Schopenhauer is notable for talking about the thing in itself, and again, he gets this from Kant. Uh, and he gets his ideas of the external world, about the world of forms, from Plato. He's also a big fan of John Locke, about what Locke says about the primary qualities and the secondary qualities. Primary qualities being that, like, smells, sensations, touch, scent, visual stimulation, again, color, and but he didn't include shape, which was a little, or maybe he did, but maybe there was a rebuttal, a famous rebuttal of this that I remember reading in that book, that where he these are first his primary qualities, the secondary qualities Locke calls the height, extension, the mathematical sort of formulations, which is what I would imagine shape to be, geometric, of the mathematical sort of category, that you can also, here goes the criticism towards the primary and secondary qualities, that the secondary are the primary qualities. They could be said to be precisely the same thing insofar as that a thing, so long as it is, there is an extra absolute, or there is an absolute reality that underlies the relativity that you're perceiving, then the primary qualities and the secondary qualities are actually of the same category, and there is no distinction between first and second, primary, secondary. That shape can too, from, if when you look at an object, let's say a stick bent in water, the refraction, you're getting a sort of misconceived, no, what was I saying? That shape could be distorted, and you won't be getting an accurate image in reality in one instance as you do when put through another sort of other physical substance that will make the object turn otherwise towards your relative sensory organ, how you're perceiving of it. That might have sounded a little confusing. Anyway, so the primary and the secondary qualities, take my word on it, look it up actually, are said to be the same thing. So anyway, the Kantian approach is to say that between man and the external world there stands the intellect. And this is the biggest thing that Schopenhauer takes from Kant. And I believe this is where he divides from Plato, because I think Plato thinks that he could actually know beyond the forms. And again, this all goes back to the allegory of the cave and how we're possibly all caved cavemen looking at shadows in the wall, and all of a sudden the world that we think we know is nothing but forms, for if you were to step out in the third dimension as we can perceive now, you would see the world differently. But I mean, supposing there's higher dimensions, we're probably in some sort of dimension ourselves that we just can't look out of the wall to. So in each of these modes of whatever dimension we're perceiving of, it seems relative towards our sensory organs, so thereby there has to be something that underlies its reality, the thing in itself, as Kant would call it, the thing in itself, also as Schopenhauer would call it. Now, these distinctions about a reality being a thing in itself, and that being the focus of, let's say, the whatness of philosophy. This would be called, as distinguished by book I'm reading, I forget the author's name, but she's the historian or the philosopher that talks about Schopenhauer. We would call this distinction of things that concern the thing in itself to be radical idealism versus when we concern ourselves with the representations of objects in the external world. That would be partial idealism. This is how Schopenhauer views Kant as a radical idealist, that he too looks at things for the thing in themselves. However, Kant feels that he can never actually prove a justification for it, whereas Schopenhauer